Good afternoon, everybody. I make it 2 o'clock, so let's get started with this advanced EndNote workshop. Welcome. My name's Catherine Hayden, and I'm a liaison librarian with the Faculty of Health. And I have with me Marvin van Proijen, who's a research data librarian. So I'll be speaking and doing the demos for this workshop, and Marvin's going to be manning the chat. So if you have any questions, or if I have gone too quickly, please just pop it in the chat and alert Marvin, and he can unmute himself and let me know, and I can go back over to demo something, or he will be able to answer the question. So that's the easiest way for this to work. So be sure that your microphone and camera are turned off throughout the session, but as I just mentioned, I use the chat to say hello and communicate with Marvin. So our objectives today, well, I kind of think of this workshop as being across 4 themes. The first is to really look at how you as an individual can work with EndNote in different locations, how to use EndNote Online and syncing libraries to achieve this. The second part is about how you might like to work with other people, how you might collaborate, work in teams, share libraries with a supervisor, for instance. So that's the second part. The third section I think of as good housekeeping, how to make sure your library is nice and clean and doesn't have duplicates and doesn't have wrong forms of author names, for example, so that when you come to cite in a Word document, everything will be working as well as possible. And then finally, we will look at a few tips around working with complex, long formatted Word documents and what best practice would be there. So working with EndNote in different locations and using different devices, people might think, oh, easy, we would just use Dropbox or work in the cloud, and that is a big mistake. Unfortunately, EndNote libraries do not work from cloud locations. Opening and using EndNote libraries from cloud locations will corrupt the libraries and their related Word documents over time. So that is an absolute big no-no. So I'm just going to stop share from the slide now. And hello, everybody. You can see all your lovely faces for a minute. And I'm going to reshare and EndNote library to demo how you would achieve this. So here I have the example library that we had shared with you all. And so just imagine you have started working with this EndNote library, but you want to set up a network of your own using EndNote Online and doing this through syncing. Well, how do you achieve this? Well, from library, you would use this option, sync. Now, because I have done this before, I'm not getting a sign up to create a new EndNote account. You would if you do not have one already, but you can do this using your QUT email. If you have a Web of Science account, you can use those details because EndNote is owned by the Web of Science people. You would also get a prompt to save a backup of your library in a compressed format. So you could do that. But then it's just as simple as going to library and sync. So now I'm just going to stop this share again, and I would like to share to show you how to go to the EndNote Online. So hopefully now you can see a Bing search for EndNote Online, and EndNote is sits under Clarivate Analytics, and this is where you would be able to log in. This little login on the top right hand side, and since I had been doing a practice run just before, it hasn't actually asked me to do this. It has remembered me, which is extremely nice. And there is my online library with its 66 references. Now, I just wanted to actually show you how things change when you sync from one to the other. So you're going to be getting motion sickness, but I'm going to stop share and then reshare the first library, my first main desktop library. So back I go to my EndNote library. And here I want to demonstrate syncing a change by creating a group. So I'm just going to create a group here. I'm going to say EndNote, find me any reference that has in the title ballet. So off it goes, and it has found me 3 references. So I'm going to right click and add these references to, or my new group. I didn't give it a name, so I'm going to rename that new group ballet. Oops. And then I'm going to do that search again. And I'm going to put these 3 references, I right click and add references into ballet. So this is an example of what we call like a simple group. I have manually created it and manually added some references into it. Now I'm going to create a different type of group. I want to create a smart group. So you're probably aware of what a smart group is. I'm going to set some criteria by which I want this group to be populated. I'm going to say to EndNote, any reference that has in the title the word tango, please pop them into this group. Okay, so now I have a smart group, that's tango, and a simple group that has ballet. And so I've made some changes. So I need to sync to make these changes flow into my EndNote online library. So I'm just going to hit sync. And then I'm going to stop share and share screen and go back into my EndNote online library, which hopefully you can see. Now I'm just going to refresh it. Now, hopefully you can all see, Marvin, please pipe up if people can't, but hopefully you can all see on the right under my groups, the simple group ballet has appeared. However, the smart group has not. So that is something to remember when you are doing this process, that your more complex groups, your group sets, and your smart groups will not show up in the EndNote Online, only your simple groups will show. So let us have a little look now at what we can see here. So we have got my groups, just the simple groups, as I mentioned. I can see a group that someone else, Marvin, as it happens, has shared with me previously that I would be able to look at. Hasn't got anything in it, however. Up here under collect, this is where you have options to search via library catalog to add references. you can use new reference, looks very much like the desktop, and add some references manually. And you can also import references here, choosing a file and selecting which database you might have exported from. Under Organize, you can manage your groups. You can see the groups of others. You can find your duplicates and also manage attachments. Formats will give you options to look at exporting your references in a specific bibliographic style, saving them, emailing them, printing them. You've also got the Cite While You Write plugin and ways of exporting references. Match is quite a nice functionality, but remember that the background database that this works with is Web of Science, is an option to put in an abstract that you might have written to try and find a good journal match, to try and identify good places where you might want to publish. And then options is where you manage your EndNote Online account. And finally, in downloads, you've got the Cite While You Write plugin, should you want to be doing that from EndNote Online. There's also a tool and a little bookmarklet, this capture reference, that you can put on your toolbar to do a screen scrape to capture references should you want. And there's also a PDF capturing tool. So that is wending our way around EndNote Online and what it looks like. So I'm just going to, and apologies, this class is a little bit of switching around various screens. So I'm just going to stop share again and share once more back to the desktop library. So just as a reminder, so what we're looking at are ways of creating a network so you can work in different locations. So you've just seen that I've taken an EndNote library that I had on my desktop and I've synced it and I've made changes and I've got the contents in EndNote Online. Now, just imagine I've taken myself home and I want to work on a desktop at home and on this different computer. So I want to kind of finish the loop of my network, if you like. So I'm on activity 3 here. If you've printed off the exercise is the tutorial material that Marvin sent you. So what I need to do this is to create a new EndNote library. So I'm going to do File, New, and I'm just going to save this new EndNote library. So yes, so what I've done is I opened a brand new library. So imagine I've gone home and I want to finish this network. And so I'm going to go to Library and Sync. And yes, and I want to get the contents of the first library that I showed you and what's in EndNote Online into this library. And if you look on the left-hand side, you can see it's beginning to work. And you can see that I have this time 2 groups that have come across. One is the ballet group, which was the simple group, but also the smart group, the tango group has come over as well, which is wonderful. And if I'd had group sets as well, or more complex ones, they would have come through as well. So as best as I could, sitting in a single PC, I hope that's sort of shown you how you can create this network and be using a library in different locations. Now, I'm looking at number 4 in the tutorial here. I just want to show you sync preferences. So if you go to Edit, under Preferences here, there's all kinds of wonderful things you can do in Preferences, but we're going to focus on Sync. And something that you can do is click this box, which is to sync automatically, which would mean the sync would occur every 15 minutes. If you don't want this to happen, if you prefer to sync manually at the end of the period that you've worked, then you might find it simpler to do that. Doing the automatic sync might end up slowing your computer, so you might prefer to keep control of that yourself. So if a reference is edited between syncs, you'll get a sync conflict pop-up, allowing you to compare and to select the correct reference. It's a good idea always to have a backup of your library. It is very, you can get into pickles with these networks. I have to say it's a little bit different when you're trying to teach something and test things, because initially I thought I would be able to show you an empty online library despite having tested it. But of course, as soon as I made the change in my online library and I completely emptied it, that meant that when I synced back down, I completely emptied the other one. So I had a bit of an interesting time going back and forth and having to start from scratch. So be aware of that. The sync process merges all libraries. It changes the references in all the libraries. So if you delete the reference in the desktop library, then sync, then that change will be made in all the libraries. If you make the change in the online, the same thing will happen. You'll make the change in all the libraries. And the thing to be aware of is you cannot have multiple EndNote online libraries. You can only have one of those. So if you have pre-existing multiple desktop libraries and you want to work with all of them online, you will need to consolidate them and be happy to have them consolidated. So how to do that? Well, if you are in references and you do copy references, you can choose a library to copy your references and consolidate to a library that way. So think about how you need to work with EndNote and whether you're happy to have that bigger library. We are going to look at groups in a little while, and so something that you could do, of course, is to have your multiple libraries in different groups and use that organization if that made things a little easier for you. I'm just going to stop share here for a minute and reshare again. Okay, so we should be back on the slides. And I just want to show you this little visual just to be sure that I managed to get across clearly what it is that you would be doing when you create an original EndNote desktop library and then use this syncing process that I just demonstrated. So imagine you're a brand new PhD student, you've got your own office, your own PC, it's all wonderful, and you've started working and populating your EndNote library for your literature review. And so this is what you've done. You've made a lot of changes. At the end of the day, you sync, and your EndNote online library will be matching that original library from your Office PC. When you get home, you might do a bit more work, sync, and there you've got your 3 libraries matching. The next day, you might be doing a little bit of work on the train. Maybe the train has good Wi-Fi, so you make changes on your EndNote Online. When you get home, you sync, and the changes that you did on the train have filtered through to your home PC. The next day, you go into your QUT office, go to the PC, sync there, and all the changes have filtered through. Another day, you might be an insomniac and working late at night. You sync, it goes up to EndNote Online, get back to the office, sync again, and the changes have filtered through. So just to make clear that you can be making the changes in any of these places, you sync and it will filter through to all those libraries in different locations. So I hope that helps to make things a little clearer. Okay, I'm going to stop that share. And I'm going to share again to the EndNote library. So hopefully everybody can see the EndNote library. Have any questions come through, Marvin? Is there anything that I need to address? Was everything?
Maybe you could cover some of what you've already covered in your notes there. I've just had a question come through, which is from John Paul. And he asks, what's going to be the best way to move an EndNote library from one laptop to another laptop? And he's asking, is syncing going to work?
Yes, well, you could do it. You could do it by syncing, absolutely. But there are other ways that you can move a library from one to another. In some cases, you can email a library if it's not too big, or you can save one on file share and then download it to a hard drive. So that's another option. So if it's simply a matter of moving it once, you could even save it to a USB and then move it to the other laptop. So if it's just a single move, you could do that.
If I could add to that a little bit, I suppose it depends a little bit on what you're trying to achieve, John Paul. So if you're trying to achieve just one library that you don't want networked and with which you don't want to work across different locations, then you could save it and open it again on another laptop. But the purpose of this, what Catherine is showing now, is how to create a network of a library that you can work with across different locations. So that's why syncing would be a good solution.
Yes, exactly. So as Marvin just expressed, it really depends what your need is. If it's simply that, you know, one laptop is defunct and you're moving to the next, and that's the only place that you work, that is one scenario, but you might be wanting to work across different locations. So that is something else to consider.